God. Okay, now here's the thing, because obviously, sex in real life, for an actual fulfilling experience, there has to be some sort of like an emotional connection, right? Even if you're a guy, I know guys tend to be quite, like visual, but it's never going to be as fulfilling if there's no
Right.
emotional connection, right? So
Correct.
when it comes down to porn, sometimes like most people just kind of, masturbate to it so that they can just get some like quick relief.
Right.
And it's not really a source where you can go to for emotional connection, right? Because
Right.
like it's pretty funny because like sometimes if you read the comment section of these porn videos, like it's pretty funny because I mean it's funny and sad too, because it's like people watch a porn video but they're like, man, I have to stop doing this. I feel so lonely. Like it's pretty
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
while they're on the site. So like obviously, they're horny and they're trying to masturbate, but at the same
Right.
time, they're also aware of what's going on. They don't feel right. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So with that in mind,
Mhm.
does that give us a sense of hope or like a positive outlook? Because, with AI agents as well, it can replicate, I guess, somewhat of human tendencies, but I don't know if it can give you that emotional connection or sense of fulfillment the way that an actual human being can. You know what I mean? So like, what do you think?
Well, I used to agree with you. Okay. And when I
Yeah.
got started in this whole area of technology and sex, it was because I sort of read a survey about robots and people having sex with robots. And, I'm a sex therapist. Up until that point, I never took any of that seriously, but this was an MIT survey and I thought, wow, these people know what they're talking about. And they're saying that really within 20 to 50 years, robots are going to be human-like. And I know as a sex therapist, people are going to want to have sex with them. So I started to investigate all this. This was about a decade ago. There was no information available academically. And the only thing I could find was an academic conference in Brussels called the Sex and Love with Robots Conference, which I did go to. I got my husband to take me. I was pretty concerned what I was going to find there because I had no, no knowledge what this was really all about,
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a fascinating conference. I learned a lot, but so remember the title was Sex and Love with Robots. I thought, okay, people, I kept my mouth shut. I'm not going to be the irritating American that doesn't agree. But I thought, okay, I'm here because I think people will want to have sex with their robots, but they're not going to love their robots. Okay, I feel completely different now. Incidentally, that conference is now called the Love and Sex with Robots Conference. But I think the bottom line, so they put love now front and center. Okay, but I think the bottom line is that it's what we feel inside. What feels real to us is our internal experience. And over the past, literally just 4 years, the effort with this tech has been to facilitate emotional connection. That's been the goal within the last 4 years. So it can actually make people feel loved and it can make people feel wanted. And it's really just, what is this? This is neurochemicals in our heads in a certain way. And if that's what's getting released, people interpret it in that way. So I think that while it makes sense what you're saying, that people aren't really going to get that emotional satisfaction, studies are already showing that people are getting that kind of fulfillment. It may not feel exactly the same as human, and I would argue that it wouldn't be exactly the same as human. But for many people, it's going to feel that way. I would also say to you that you can still prefer a human, but get very involved with AI intimacy because its goal is to meet unmet needs. So if you prefer humans, but you have no partner and you have sexual needs, you're going to go for AI. Now, the more you go for AI, we could argue that people are becoming, basically it's reinforcement learning, right? And they're going to just ultimately become more confident with AI, less confident with humans, more comfortable relaxing and letting go. Now think about this too. People are not real enthusiastic necessarily about telling their partner what their ultimate desire is, their ultimate fantasy. People are afraid they're going to be,
judged.
Right. But they don't worry about that with AI. So in a certain way, at least a subset of people are going to feel like they're more authentic with AI, you see, because they're going to say more than they're willing to say to a human. That doesn't even begin to talk about things like VR porn that is so engaging that people feel like they're with others in that. We should talk about VR porn because it is super, super impactful. Now, ultimately, will people feel more lonely? I think that's a very, you suggested that. I think that's a very reasonable thing to expect. And research is already showing us that. But in the meantime, I would argue that this stuff is going to be really popular. And by the time people feel lonely, they've had AI agents for 3 years and no human, that is going to impact their confidence level, their comfort interacting with a human. It's going to impact their sexual skills. Because you know, Shaq, we learn how to make love by interacting with a human, not with an AI. And if you've been interacting with AI for 3 years, how confident are you going to be that you even know how to do this with a human? So there are so many, we're covering a lot of information in a short time. There's so many elements here that are going to get played out. So.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you're talking about this like over a 20, 30, 40 year plus timeline, right?
Not even.
Or do you expect it? Really? You think it's going to happen within like 5, 7, 8 years?
Yeah, because here's the thing. Now, think is that, I'm glad you said that. I'm just guessing. But people are having less sex. They've been having less sex for 20 years. As long as we've been measuring sexual frequency, it's going down. So people are not reporting more sex. They're not reporting more satisfying sex with humans. In fact, we hear the opposite. Oh, there's no good men. There's no good women, right? I mean, we're not seeing any trends that would leave me feeling optimistic for human connection. So most of it started well before this kind of technology even showed up, and it's that much more potent. So that's my concern. I mean, this is a very real concern, in my opinion. I don't say any of this lightly, like I think it's a good idea. This is what got me into this whole topic, a decade ago. Is I feel concerned about the future of humanity. I know how potent this stuff is. So that's why I'm not that optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure how I feel about this because that's not good because like human beings can only dominate the world if we work together.
Correct.
Right? That's the only reason why we dominate the world. Otherwise, we'd be getting killed in forests and you know what I mean? It's our ability to sync that allows us to take control of the planet. You know what I mean? Because physically, we're not that impressive. You know, you can look at other animals. We're really not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, other animals will destroy you, like, just end you in like a few minutes. Now, here's the thing, though, because, again, I'm Gen Z, right? So most of my friends are also Gen Z. They're either a few years younger or a few years older. Okay. Yeah. And like, again, like I'm pretty social, right? So I have a pretty vast social group. So it's like, I just find it hard. I mean, maybe it's just my vast social group. I guess the question I'm asking is like, what type of people or like what type of personalities would probably lean towards AI agents? Because like even with, like my younger cousins that are like born in 2012, right? Like at the absolute end of Gen Z, like I just cannot see her or them, having a preference for AI agents and an AI romance over actual human romance. You know what I mean? So absolutely, what type of a personality are we looking at? Because again, like almost all of my friends are Gen Z and I really cannot see, I mean, for me at least, I have a hard time seeing people actually having a preference for it. They might use it for some sort of a, like some sort of a mental relief or something like that. But to actually have a preference for that and say no to humans, it's a bit difficult for me to see that, right? So what personalities are we looking at that would probably lean towards that? So first of all, I hope you're right. I mean, I know you're right. I hope I'm right. I know you're right in terms of your assessment of your friends. I hope you're right in terms of, how this is relevant to the rest of the population. The world, yeah. Now, the people that are initially most attracted to this kind of technology would be folks like on the autistic spectrum, folks that have had
that find humans like scary or challenging. So within psychology, we call them adjustment disorders, like and attachment disorders. So like people who have they're afraid to connect with other humans, or they find it for whatever reason uncomfortable, so they want more distance, or they find themselves wanting more closeness than their partner wants. There's different kinds of attachment disorders, but folks that essentially find humans not necessarily trustworthy, not necessarily safe, that's really going to be who's interested first. But let me explain why I feel like there's a really good chance this is going to become much more pervasive than that. So first of all, you're a unique sample. I'm sure you're an extrovert to be doing this kind of.
Yeah, I'm an extrovert, yeah.
Right? And you hang out with friends that are like very social and, you extroverted as well. So not necessarily.
Okay. To be honest, I actually find myself in more conversations with introverts.
Okay.
Right? Because don't get me wrong. I mean, people are people, but in general, like, as they say, opposites kind of attract, right?
Yeah.
I have a pretty wide ranging friend group because I have natural, like, high levels of like natural curiosity. Yeah. So because of that, I find myself in random conversations with people everywhere. Like even, halfway across the country, I'll be in a conversation with someone for multiple hours on end who's like in their 80s. You know what I mean? Like, so like I enjoy that, right? So like I do understand what you're saying, but to be honest, it's pretty vast for me at least.
Good. Okay. And I'm hoping you're right. But here's the thing. This technology in general, within evolutionary psychology, we call it supernormal stimuli. So supernormal stimuli is basically stimuli that's created by humanity, but it meets primal needs in a way that we can't really get met in nature. So we see this with food. So all of this sort of like lab constructed food, not in a healthy way. I mean, they're trying to do that now, but like over the last, a couple of decades, we've had access to food that is so unhealthy. It's super salty, super sweet, super salty and sweet, super fatty, more so than we could access through nature. And what do we have? We have half the world is obese. That's what we got. And it didn't happen. It didn't take long, right?
Especially in the States.
Yeah. But all over the world. So you can access this food quickly and it stores well and you don't have to prepare it. So even if you prefer a healthy meal, how many times do we eat an unhealthy meal because we don't have the time or whatever else? So now we have an obese population because food was super normal. Let me give you a very specific example of that in case people aren't understanding. So we have a evolutionary predisposition to find sweets appealing because sweeter food when it occurred in nature, it had more calories, and over hundreds of thousands of years as we've evolved, getting calories enough for the day was a challenge. That was one of the great challenges. Staying alive meant eating enough calories to stay alive. And so our ancestors who preferred sweeter food were more likely to stay alive and reproduce. And hence we have sort of inherited this tendency to like sweet food. Now, a sweet food would be an apple that occurs in nature. And so if we have an apple in our kitchen, we have an apple in our kitchen, probably neither you nor I would give any care about the fact there's apples in there. But if we had an apple pie in there where we took the apple, we added sugar, we added cinnamon, we added flaky crust, and that's in our kitchen. Like one of us may be thinking, well, after this interview, I'm going to go get some apple pie. So there's something just innately compelling about a supernormal stimuli. And that's where I worry, about like what you're saying, that just because people won't necessarily prefer it, they're still going to sort of like start to engage it. And as people, as we talked about a few minutes ago, seem to become less trusting of each other, less engaged with each other, that's really going to add another element of support toward this kind of supernormal stimuli.
Yeah, so that is a really interesting point. Yeah, so basically what you're saying is if you look at human evolution, we have a preference for sweets based off of what you just said, right?
Right.
And based off of that natural preference, we can kind of like use other things to modify the world in terms of food and kind of satisfy that sweet, right? So basically, again, through evolution, we have a need for deep emotional connection. So what you're saying is that we can also, even though we might not understand it yet, we can also modify emotional connection to the point where it feels like it's the actual thing, similar to how it is with sweets.
Exactly.
Correct?
Exactly.
Man, that's crazy.
Right.
It's just,
It's so
I really don't know how to,
so potent.
yeah. So